right. Hey, everybody. This is Book Club. We are on part 2 of the FBI killers, and we'll finish it in 2 weeks from now. And of course, we'd love for you to like and subscribe and join us on YouTube. Uta Sibylla Woods, Living My Best Life. All right. And here we go. All right. So the last time we stopped, they met in that car. And then from there on, it started talking about their relationship. And then it kind of stops when we discover that she got killed. But it doesn't go into like who they think did what or anything like that. It just stops there and kind of goes into that her sister's looking for her and her sister knows something's wrong. But now we're going to cover that section. But that's the section that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about from the point where the FBI killer meets Susan in the car. Susan Smith, what was his name?
Mark.
So Mark meets Susan and in the car, and we're going to talk about all the way up to the point where he comes back in town to do something for a case. He meets up with her, and then all of a sudden there's this disappearance, and then her sister's very concerned and starts voicing her concern, but that's where we stop. And I think the rest of the book's going to be all about how they discover who did what or whatever else. But I would say so far, like, I totally enjoyed the book. The hardest part was the first chapter. As I'm getting more into their story, I think they're both crazy. What do you think, Mom?
He is conniving and he is, I don't know.
Something's off with him too, though. Like, and obviously he's a killer, but I think there's something off with him. Like even there was like a part in the book where it's like his dad passed away, and then it mentions like there must have been some kind of problem in their mom and dad's house because he don't even talk to his own mom. Do you remember that part, Mom? Like something happened and he was like, I don't even talk to her. You know what I mean? He hasn't seen his mom since his dad passed away or something like that.
On my screen. Oh, now you moved.
Oh, sorry. Do you remember that part?
I don't remember that, but he didn't have a good relationship with his family in general, it looks like. It seems. Yeah. He doesn't have no contact. He has contact with his in-laws, with her parents and all that. And they seem to be thinking very highly of him too.
They do. And even to the point where in the first little section that we covered, even when his wife was the most unhappiest, she pretended to be happy when her in-laws came in town. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. She doesn't want her family to think bad of him either, because I think that has something to do with her whole family's dynamics. Like,
her family are very close. She talks to her sister always and whatever. It's on the phone with her family a lot.
Mm-hmm. And then
he uses any excuse to go back to her family.
Yes, she's always going back home.
It where she is.
And then I thought it was so interesting because you can't tell, like, from Mark's childhood that there was problems with his family, but obviously there was some type of a problem because there wasn't closeness. And then when he really talks about that one time when somebody asked him about something, he's like, I haven't seen my mom since my dad died. Apparently there was some kind of like neglect or abuse or something in that family, like towards the mom and dad, like they weren't really loving each other or something. Do you remember that? Oh, you froze. I'm sorry. Can you see me, Mom? There you are. I see you now.
Oh. You always freeze from time to time. I don't know what's going on today. I said his coach had a better relationship with him than his family, it seems like.
It seems like anybody that he's trying to impress, until that time comes where he's not trying to impress that person anymore, he doesn't feel like he needs you anymore, he knows how to behave and be social and to be entertaining. And then the minute he doesn't really have a use for you, he doesn't really care, like, at all. And I think when somebody described that, they said like that's like a pattern of a psychopath, like that they can turn emotions on off and on. Like he's into it and then he's like you're dead to him. Because really, he could have cared less about Susan. She was just causing so much trouble because she was so vocal.
Yeah.
And she was so intrusive in his life. She was very like placing herself in everywhere.
Yeah, she sat on his desk and they were holding hands in town, which, whatever, if you know.
And then it also came out that he had a reputation of being with other women too. Like people had seen him come out of hotel rooms and stuff with other women. He had just at some point to the like sheriff deputy or somebody, he said, well, you know, I'm having problems at home. I'm trying to work it out, but we may not, you know, and then that was with like some other random woman, but it wasn't Susan. It was somebody else. So he's got like this pattern of how he knows how to manipulate women to some extent to get whatever it is he wants to.
And his wife said, he has lots, I'm used to him having lots of women friends. Remember when he said that?
And like she couldn't even believe like that he was having an affair because it was just something that he did, is he entertained women. They were friends just like how he was friends with men. But other people had noticed some of those relationships had crossed lines, but he always had an excuse for it. And it wasn't always with Susan, it was with lots of different women. Even when her husband called the house to try to rat Susan out, the wife just didn't even care. Like she didn't believe it or anything. And then Susan was constantly calling his wife and would stay on the phone with her for hours. Do you remember that? Oh, we got a horrible reception today. This sucks. Do you remember that, Mom?
I didn't hear anything the last couple of minutes.
Okay. I was just...
Are you recording this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says recording up here in mine too. Why?
Because I'm recording it.
Oh. It didn't never say that you put online, you know?
Yeah, it just keeps giving me little things that say internet connection's unstable, but I was having problems with my internet all this week, so that's probably...
Saturday morning is not a good time to have that.
Yeah, we probably should have done it last night, but whatever. I don't know, like, I thought it was strange that even Susan had a relationship with his wife, and his wife played along with it because she felt like she was just an informant and she didn't want to ruin anything for her husband. Yeah. She used to call her in the middle of the night till like 2 a.m. Remember that in the book?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really weird. So the second part of the book really is a lot about, lets you know about behaviors and activities or traits that Susan had and that Mark had during that time. And it also kind of lets you know a little bit like how manipulative Mark really is. Because you almost feel like he's an innocent person in this because Susan's so crazy and so off the scale with it. But he's crazy too. Mom?
Yeah.
Is there something you want to add?
No.
So we pretty much stopped at chapter 12. That's where we're at. We're going to read the rest of the book from chapter 12 on. And I just was going to say that the book's really good. I like how they kind of sectioned it off. And even though we always read our books in threes, this just happened to be, the threes just happened to be really good with like telling the story too. So now the next part of the story that we're going to get into is just the process of figuring out that Susan is dead and what happened. So my mom already read the book, so she knows all about the end, but I only read it as we go along because otherwise I start talking about the end and the middle part and whatever else. But I would say the middle part was great. Like it gave you great insight on Mark and great insight on Susan and a little bit about like what they were doing around that time. It really let me see how crazy she was. She was super crazy.
but she all along she tries to live a normal life, takes care of her kids and blah blah blah, until towards the end.
When she moved in with her sister. And then she wasn't eating. She cut her hair super duper short because Mark liked short hair, like just a bunch of weird stuff.
And she had Mark, when he wasn't around her, then she went crazy.
Yeah, she was like losing her freaking mind.
Yeah, she had Mark withdrawals.
It was a problem, but yeah, I see how a psychopath is formed. So all in all, I still feel like it's great. Actually, like this is one of my this is the type of book that I would have normally have only read in the past. I wouldn't have read a whole lot of other books besides this. So this is totally what I would like read anytime. I highly recommend this book if you just want to be entertained in the pool while you're floating around, or I don't know, on your deck in your bed. The FBI Killer. Who's the author, Mom? Aphrodite Jones is the author. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. What are you giving it?
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah. So we'll wrap this up in 2 weeks.
It's written nice. It's written, I guess, interestingly enough, so you want to read it.
And I do. Like, I had to force myself not to read anymore. I was like, don't read anymore. But I really, really wanted to. But the one thing that I thought was interesting about Susan and Mark, in some ways, they're so much alike. It's just that Mark had all the resources. He never had to involve other people in his business. Susan doesn't, but she's so manipulative that she's got her brother riding her everywhere. She's got her sister, you know, going along with it, even though her sister does not agree with it. Her sister and her sister's husband are constantly telling her to stop messing with him. Aren't they? I think, yeah. And her husband doesn't like it either, but it doesn't matter. Like Susan turns, and then her brother's girlfriend, like anyone that she feels like she can manipulate, she was manipulating them to get rides, to get money, to get clothes, because she always had to try to look her best to see him, you know, to cater to that relationship, whether it was real or imagined. Some of it maybe was an imagination in her mind. I think it was all real. She was just taking it further, or how do you say that? She was just making it more than what it was.
Where Mark had another life.
Yeah. But her fantasy was like taking over her whole life. Like she wasn't seeing her kids towards the end anymore. She had moved out of her home. She moved in with her sister. All she did is sit and wait on the phone for him to call her. And then the one time she left the house, he called. Remember?
Yeah.
She was so pissed. And then she would walk like to the post office or something, and he would pick her up there.
Yeah, they didn't want the brother-in-law to know that he picked her up, that he's in town or whatever, you know. The sister even lied to him, you know, when he asked where did she go or so, didn't want to have him to know.
Yeah. Which I think made it a little bit harder, like to figure out like her whole little murder thing, because she was a manipulative person that lied a lot to the point where people always thought she was lying. Wasn't that kind of like what people got of her? Like,
and you know, in the beginning, a lot of people didn't believe her that she had an affair with him or so. Said, yeah, and last week you had an affair with whoever, you know, or things like that.
And it kind of worked for Mark, because he was able to ride off of that idea that people had of her too, where he could play a lot of things off, where as they were concerned to her because of her personality and how she she just over amplified everything. But anyway, so I think my mom don't have nothing else to say, so I'll wrap it up. I was just gonna say, like, I thought it was interesting. I really like how the author kind of like lets you into their personalities, and then lets you see like how this really could have happened, like how the town could have been fooled, how her neighbors were fooled, because it wasn't just Mark, it was her too. It was the combination of both of their traits and that relationship that made it so easy for people to feel like there was nothing going on, even though it was so obvious there was something going on.
Yeah, except the FBI people, they should have known, you know.
Yeah.
She was constantly there. She was sitting on his desk. She was hugging him, kissing him, holding hands, and he didn't object to that. And they just
Turned a
turned a
blind eye.
eye to it, you know.
Yeah.
It was against any of the official rules.
And I feel like a lot of that turning the blind eye to it stuff had to do with that. They felt like people like Susan that came from the area where Susan came from were less of a person. And Mark was more of a person. So therefore.
Yeah, and he had that beautiful wife, you
Yes.
know. Someone said, oh, he wouldn't, whatever, with that kind of person. He has that beautiful wife who cocoons herself in the house and doesn't have any contact with anyone and is kind of weird, you know.
Yeah, she's super weird too. But I think like.
If Mark would have had a normal wife, perhaps things would have been totally different.
Yeah. But I feel like part of it was like this inequality in that area where some people felt like they were superior to other people, and Susan fell into the group of people that were less superior, like in people's minds, you know, like how people think less of a certain group or this or whatever. And because of that, I think it always played in Mark's favor because people didn't think much of her. So it was so easy to make her a liar, a this, a that, or whatever. Or, you know, like a storyteller. Because she wasn't lying. She was telling stories. Her stories were off the chain, but a lot of it was truth-based. We don't know what their conversations were. We just know what she was saying, what he was saying. She might have been making everything more than what it was, or she might have just actually been saying what he was saying. But she had a life of lies behind her that people never believed anything she said.
Yeah.
And it was hard for her sister. At the end there, it starts talking about how her sister is trying to figure out what's going on with Susan, and how her sister right away knew it's got something to do with Mark. Whatever is going on here, Mark's the last person that was with my sister, and whatever it is, Mark has done something to my sister, but nobody would hardly listen to her either at first. Didn't you think that nobody was really listening? It took her almost 2 months or 2 weeks to actually have an official complaint because they kept making her wait.
Yeah, I said, oh, she just run off again. She will come back. She might be in Chicago or whatever, because years ago, you know, she was in Chicago dealing whatever,
Yeah,
drugs and all kind of stuff. So all her back history was against her, you know. So,
I felt like the investigation never even took off though till at least 2 weeks had passed. Then it seemed like, I don't even remember what it was. Something happened and people started to be more interested. Do you remember what it was?
Mark was gone to Miami.
I think whatever it was that happened, her sister had some type of proof to show that it was Mark that she was with at last. I don't know if it was an eyewitness or a document or like I think maybe that hotel room they were in, you know what I mean? Like, I don't remember what it was, but something had happened where all of a sudden everybody was like, hold up, Mark was with her. He was the last person. And then the investigation kind of started. You know what I think it was? Her sister kept calling Mark's boss. Wasn't that what created it? Like nobody in the village was listening to her sister, and then her sister was calling the FBI boss. I thought that's what happened. But it's been a week since I read the book. I don't totally remember. But I remember it was like something happened and then they actually started to investigate it, which probably happens all the time with people when somebody dies. If you're not a perfect person and you have some flaws, people aren't really taking it serious until they realize they have to.
No. I remember what it was. It's a long time I read it.
I think my mom is realizing it was something like that too, but I almost feel like it was that her sister wasn't getting any answers, and then at some point she just turned it over to like, I'm going to start harassing the FBI. Like if people in this town won't listen to me and take me seriously, I am calling this guy's boss. I think that was, you know what? No, that was what his wife was doing to try to get him out of the town. I don't know, but I think maybe it was like all these people calling Mark's boss that made his boss curious about what was going on down there, because his wife did that too, to try to get him out of that city.
She said she was pregnant, remember? Susan.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then and I think what it was is that they found proof that she was pregnant because she went to a clinic, and that's what started the investigation, because then her sister kept saying she was pregnant with Mark's kid. And then when they found the proof that she was pregnant, then that actually stimulated a real investigation into what was going on. Where is Susan at? I think that's what it was, Mom.
Yeah, something like this. And that.
But nobody believed her till her sister showed them like the clinic that she went to or something, or a receipt from something.
Yeah, something like this. I guess I have to reread the last.
I haven't read the book in a week now. I don't remember. But I know it was like something that actually started that investigation, which is so sad because I feel like that's always what happens. Nobody cares until they're like, oh, hold up, we got to care. It'll all come together. We'll remember again when we read the end of the chapter, because that's really going to wrap it all up, and then we can put it all together. Yeah, but I think it had something to do with the sister was telling them that she was pregnant, that she knew it was Mark's, that she was telling Mark that she was pregnant, that Mark wasn't trying to take responsibility for this kid, but then, and that was what their meeting was about that last time, but about what he was going to do or not do for her. But they didn't believe her. But then when she had some kind of proof, she had some kind of something to let them know that she actually was pregnant. And I think that's what actually started the investigation into her murder, like 2 weeks after she had been missing.
And
they never found her body, which was another thing. My mom's frozen. What'd you say, Mom?
And then she calls that Hulse guy from the telling Hulse about Mark's affair, and that he was pregnant. She was pregnant by him, and he first told her to slow down. You know, your sister slept around all over. He said something like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna leave it there. So it's getting kind of interesting, and then the pieces are coming together, and people are starting to realize like Mark has a connection to this disappearance / death or something. And then we'll wrap this up in 2 weeks. And we highly recommend that you get this. This is a great summer read, The FBI Killer by Aphrodite Jones. Am I saying the name right, Mom?
Aphrodite Jones.
Aphrodite Jones?
That's how I say it in German.
Okay, well, we don't know. She might be German, and that would be the way to say it. So we want to encourage you to like and subscribe, join our channel. We do a book review every 2 weeks, and next week we'll let you know what our next book will be. All right.